Good time of day, dear colleagues. Andrei, thank you so much for the intro and for the invitation to present in front of our audience today. Since we all have to be on time, I'll go straight to the subject. So let me talk about this threshold, this red line beyond which legal norms should not interfere with tech. Of course, regulation can be a double-edged sword, both contributing and inhibiting technical regulation. So let's see which are the criteria to draw the line here. Let me first show you the current regulatory regime. I have actually put together three main sections here. First is technical regulation, including specific regulation, specific reglementation, and standardization. That's not only legal, but also technical regulations. And that includes, of course, standardizations, which is voluntary. Legal regulation is everything that's pretty much non-technical. And the third section is self-regulation, being best practices, internal codes of public and business organizations. All of these are different branches of regulation. But the question is, which of the branches should be enacted in the case of the risk? What is a risk? A risk is a combination of probability of something happening and the consequences of that thing happening. When can AI be dangerous? Briefly, when they are integrated in the high-risk environment, such as production, when the AI model is self-trained, based on the low-quality, biased data, while being very autonomous. So when we face this number of factors, the result of AI operations cannot be well predicted. But we very well understand that there is no such thing as zero risk. If we take a look at pharmaceuticals, of course, medicines are vitally necessary for people to survive, but medicines can also be harmful, because active substances sometimes cannot be processed by liver. So, prescription of certain medicines is highly regulated. And that's, of course, the domain of risk. And specifically if we entrust AI with prescription. So we should be talking about justified risk, but not about the risk, but not about complete elimination of risk. As for technical regulation, there has been the red line drawn, specifically in the legislation in Russia regarding technical regulation. And the red line is the line of security and safety. And here we talk about the threat to life and health, threat to the environment, threat to property, and risks connecting to misleading information. Everything in this domain of this four risks types should be regulated. There's also three types of risks that should be mentioned, and that are the human rights risks, risks to destabilize civic society, and threats to social and institutional security. But those risks per se should not be a reason for regulation. It's not about evaluating of risk. It's also about administration of law. if we talk about technical regulation, there is a clear methodology there to evaluate the need to apply certain norms when those norms particularly go in administration as a result of particular conditions. So there should be a set of conditions that actually trigger the application of certain norms and regulations based on the risk. Therefore, it will be possible to actually develop the adequate framework that is administrated based on risk, based on certain degree on risk. That will also be able to promote trusted environment. I'd like also to focus your attention on approaches to regulation in AI in addition to the points that I have mentioned. They are balanced, they take into account risks. So in addition to balancing and risk, we should also take into account the soft law. Soft instrumentation. The norms should eliminate barriers without creating new ones. And of course, Russian norms need to be harmonized with international practices because that will increase the competitiveness of Russian software solutions in the global market. In addition, today we should take into account the potential of self-regulation tools. They're being used now widely, for example, in the big data, in the framework of the Code of Big Data Association for Data Processing Integrity. And when these proactive self-regulating practices are created and promoted hand in hand with the governmental effort, of course that could not be the alternative to regulations that has been written into the bill. Still, this sort of conscious self-regulation can become a very potent and robust foundation for further bill and legislation